Okay, good morning, everyone. Guess it was a quite intense evening yesterday, but we should skip to the schedule, so let's start. We are here today to talk about the Polish MedTech. These days we hear a lot about the incredible science, world-class engineers and growing VC stage, but if we were to name at least 5 great Polish medtech companies that have achieved high-value exits, strategic acquisitions, most of us, I guess, would struggle to do that. My personal take would be only 3 names: HTL Strefa, Optopol Technology, and recently Scope Fluidics. So what's the problem? Maybe the truth is that we are excellent at building innovation, but we are often challenged in creating high-value businesses. Today, we are asking tough questions. Mainly, where are the successes of Polish MedTech? But we are not here to just complain. We are here to understand 2 key things. Why don't we see many more successes? And why do we not talk enough about the new wave of successes that are happening? So my name is Tomasz Chwiałkowski. I'm general partner at AEGIS Capital, VC firm investing across medtech and health tech at early stage. I guess I represent the dark side of today's topic. And my great pleasure is to host this discussion. And I would like to welcome Martyna Ścibiorek, Akces NCBR, Paulina Opiełka, KWKR legal firm, Dariusz, Piotrak, Ailis, and Michał Ryś from Stroke. I would kindly ask you to briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Martyna Ścibiorek. I am acceleration expert at Akces NCBR. I have a PhD in immunology, and I've been associated with acceleration ecosystem in Africa, and recently moved here to Poland to facilitate ecosystem here. So thank you.
Paulina Opiełka, very nice to meet you. I'm a partner in KWKR law firm, and as legal advisors, we work with investment funds, public institutions, and tech companies who try to scale up and build out to the global market. So we do see a lot of challenges that all those partners of the ecosystem face and try to help them solve them.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dariusz Piotrak, and I'm a Chief Innovation Officer at Ailis. Quick introduction about Ailis. So we call Ailis the first breast health monitoring system. And at the core of our solution is a diagnostic capsule that does the screening and diagnostics of breast cancer. I joined the startup a year ago, and my role is really to look at globalization, commercialization, and business model, and how we can take that startup to grow internationally.
Hi, Michał Ryś. I'm the founder and CEO of ABA Stroke. By the way, I used to start my career as in a VC, so on the dark side, like Tomasz said. But it was not dark side. It was very good innovationist here. Then I created my first startup, was called Dr. Omnibus. It was building the solutions for children with autism. And then I created the second one, which is currently meant for helping the people after stroke, and now we are going into the pre-dementia stage. So I also have PhD, by the way, in innovation management. Yes, so that was my passion to do this. I'm not PhD So anyway, I'm PhD in the top, but I'm not working at the university. That's very important because I would say then some things about the grants and the stuff. So you might understand why I'm said this. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Tomek. Yes, I know. Sorry.
Michał, let's start with the products. So my first question, your product is digital, highly scalable, and how do you see, because many Polish startups default to building for the comfort of the local market, is the local trap a real killer of global ambition?
You know, from the name you see it, local trap, it's a killer of global ambition. You see, you have the answer. But first, I don't say that you should do everything global. Sometimes it's good to have a very good product on the Polish market. It's a myth to say that you should always need to be global. There are good companies that are very local. They have good products for current Polish NFZ or whatever. They could deliver and help our current system. It's fine. Don't worry. It's okay. But about the global, for us, for example, we never consider ourselves as a company that can be local only, especially that we are focusing the MDR regulations and then FDA regulations. So having this in mind, we need to meet the requirements for the whole European Union. So even having this in mind, we never thought about ourselves as a company that needs to be here in Poland. So in case of MedTech, if you go into the regulation space, which is crucial in that in this sector, you have an option always to go to any European country just because you have an access, as long as you follow the MDR rules, of course. So in our case, from the very beginning, we consider ourselves as a global solutions, but again, it's not always like that. It needs to be like that. However, most of the medtech companies that saying that they will go to United States, to European markets, they usually stuck here. You're right about it. But it's not only about we don't want to go. It's very difficult to go to the other market. We, for example, working on the German market now, but we started to do it 5 years ago. So it's not like we just go there. You cannot just go to the second market and say, okay, we'll do the same what we do here in Poland. It doesn't work at all, usually. So, preparing the next markets, it's a tough job, and you're not always succeeding. However, if you want to be a global, just go there, but don't say that it's wrong to stay here. It's okay. Trust me, it's a myth again. Do good businesses here and don't do anything global, because not everything needs to be global. I learned it from the years that people tend to say, we need to be global. And then they spend millions on marketing for Spain, other countries that will never get the market on, because they just were doing because they wanted to be global. It doesn't work like that. Do things properly, not being global because I want to be global. Global, it's an option that I believe it's good, but I believe there are a lot of products that are very good local. So yes, that's my idea. However, that's the killer of being global. Of course, you're right. The local trap is a killer of global approach.
So build local, think global.
Of course, if you are global, you can. No. Don't go into this. No, guys, we are from the years we are doing the same. We are saying do this, do this, do this. It doesn't really that. There is no like one good way to go. There are some companies that's supposed to stay here and do our business only here. Why not? There are some companies they don't have nothing to do here in Europe. They need to go to the United States because the regulations are better over there in case, for example, of the AI. So, trying to make everything in the same way, it's really wrong. MedTech, it's not one-dimensional. There are a lot of possibilities and chances that you can follow. So yes, don't try to squeeze it into the theory we know from the books and everything like that, because I know you use it.
Darek, I have seen and I have experienced your solution as a hardware solution. It's state of the art in terms of design and clinical output. But building hardware is costly and complex. And we often see Polish hardware solutions that are superior, but fail due to poor industrial design or difficult clinical workflow. Is the Polish engineering ego the desire to prove technical superiority over focusing on user adaptation and clinical efficiency our greatest self-sabotage?
It's a very good question. And I actually understand that need and desire because actually my background is in computer science and I work with brilliant minds. And I remember that, taking pride into the best algorithm, solving the really difficult problems. Over the years, however, when I spent many years working in United Kingdom, working in the US, I've seen quite the opposite. I've seen the people who really, even people from the consulting, from technology, who, in terms of technical skills, they were really much lower, much less educated or less skilled. However, their communication skills, their presentation skills excelled, and they actually have made careers. But going back into business, I think, first of all, I think it also very much depends on who the founder is. So if you have a founder who is coming from that engineering background, they quite often develop that area first, right? And I think what works best is when there is a really kind of excellent technical founder who is supported by a very good business person or clinical person, and they work together. In Ailis, that's how the team was designed from the start, from the beginning. Actually, our founders represented the clinical parts. So we had an oncologist right from the beginning. We've had a scientist who developed the method for the innovative method from the cancer screening. We've had a top engineer with PhD as well, who was on our boards from the beginning. And finally, we had a Michał, who is the CEO and the founder, and his hat was really kind of business and user-centric, right? So he was driving that startup from that perspective. And from the day one, we engage, for example, our patients, right? So we asked, we tried to understand what are the problems, what are the barriers in terms of our solutions, in terms of, for example, cancer diagnostics. Because if you look at the problem, actually around 50% of women just avoid screening. So it's not the technology, right? It's the psychology that needs to be addressed. So even if we had the brilliant scan, still 50% of women would not go and would not get checked. So we tried first to understand, okay, what's the problem, right? And we kind of found out that the whole process of testing and examination for women is very painful. We've also, by the way, we've also looked at global kind of culture right from the beginning. So we did the focus studies in kind of Asia, in Middle East, in Europe, to understand different perspective of women. And we found out that, I'm quite surprising, in many countries like Middle East, for example, there's a huge problem with breast cancer. And it's really about the cultures. For example, there, women don't, they don't want to get undressed in front of the men. But the medical professions are male or men-oriented mainly, right? So 90% of radiologists, or maybe even 95% in those countries are men. So simply because of this, women avoid screening, and they have one of the biggest incidents of the breast cancer, right? So when we thought about the solution, for example, we thought about almost a fully automated solution where, now we still need a medical person or an operator to operate because of the law, right? It's more or acts, kind of regulations. We still need a person, but maybe in the future we will kind of just admit that person to the diagnosis, and the person, women, could get undressed and do this all by itself with the support of technology. So for example, that's how we could solve that problem. Yeah. So going back to the broader question, I would say, really, think about the problem, about the friction, because in our case, it was to really understand the patient needs, also under the user. In many solutions in MedTech are clinicians, right, or doctors. So I think the solution is to really get these people involved at the very early stage. Right, and technical excellence is also very important. Those breakthroughs are very important, but in terms of commercialization, we need to resolve real problems of the users.
And in the beginning of your answer, you have highlighted the, let's say, issue of the founder and the team setup. So I would continue asking both of you, Darek and Michał, about the silent founder problem, as I call it. Polish companies often lack the aggressive, globally loud storytelling scene in the US and Israel tech scene. Why are Polish founders generally too humble or too reserved? And how can they develop the necessary audacity to become chief evangelist on the world stage? Or is it even necessary to do that?
Can I start?
Yeah, you can start. Yeah.
By the way, you should go for the pre-diagnosis. Then you can go directly to the patient with the medical person, if you want to scale it up. Okay, so anyway, we are silent because, to be honest, it's a cultural thing. European founders are usually less loudly. And also MedTech is quite specific because, hi, come on, I'm doing the dementia things, guys, it's a big thing, let's go. It doesn't feel like that. I've never seen Europe, by the way, even the US founders are not that loud as we assume in that case. Because we see, Zuckerberg, all these people, that Altman, very, very, we've seen them as a kind of evangelist, but innovation in the United States, actually, it's not that loud. It's pretty similar like here. It goes quite silent. I don't say that we need to be silent and we need to be loud. I just assume that it's a very cultural thing. For example, our VCs are not used to have two optimistic founders, for example. I don't know how about you, but if someone's coming to you and saying the nice stories, then you have a kind of light in mind. I need to check him twice because that might be something not natural for me. It's like that, And when I was in the United States, I've noticed that most of the founders I met over there during the pitching sessions, they were quite similar to myself. Not very loudly. They were just silent people doing their jobs. So we see the very loud, very people on the first pages of the Forbes. Don't go in there, never. So that's what we see. But actually, 90 or 95% of these companies are going very silent, and I don't consider this is the problem here. I believe this is our cultural stuff. We should do as we prefer to do. By the way, seeing the Polish founders trying to be loud US founders is extremely it's grotesque. Trust me, it looks grotesque. It's not for us. You can learn it, but why? So I don't say this is the problem, at least in MedTech. However, the biggest problem for us, we try to be too much US and too much Israeli type people. We are not US and Israeli type people. And as long as we try to copycat them, that might be the case that we are losing this battle because we have our own way to do it. And it's not bad. It's just our own. Thank you.
I mean, I kind of agree with you that in our culture, modesty, humility are the virtues that we are kind of learned from the beginning, right? That's how we grow up. So maybe this is something that until a certain point, we actually think that the product will defend itself, right? The product is great, so I'm humble. The product will because it's so great, it will conquer the world. But again, my experience of when I used to work in the US, when I used to work in the UK, I've seen completely a different way of doing business. But now, when I'm back in MedTech scene, I think what I would advise is simply really believe in the product you're working on, right? So as a founder, if you have that fire about the product, about changing the world, changing something in the business, and truly believe this, in my mind, it's about great storytelling. But starting from that energy, from that motivation and determination, I think then going into conferences is actually first maybe local like this, and then more global. Is actually quite important if we want to create a global startup. At Ailis, what we've done from quite early on, we applied for many global competitions to international ones, first local ones, but then international ones. And for example, one of the great success stories was that we've won a Red Dot Design Award, right, which is one of the top international awards for the design. We've won AI Solution of the Year in the UK, maybe not in the top a vertical portal, but maybe second, right? And we constantly apply for any global competitions, events. We have actually a PR team. Again, quite early, even when we were at the very early R&D stage, we've already started that work around PR. And I think it actually helped us quite a lot to reach to that stage right now. For example, we have a very good connection, like in the UK. UK wants to our team to be relocated to that country, right? That was the kind of the effect of that work. So again, going back to the original thing, so even though we have that culture of being humble and modest, I think we can learn of how to be more global, of how to scale the product, how to make it more visible. And I think I have the final kind of thought that there's something about the mid-market in Poland, right? So because we, as the country which has around like 38 million people, a lot of companies can grow to become kind of leaders in that market, and they can be quite comfortable within our culture. But then, going global is completely different thing. You need to change that mindset. You need to change that storytelling to go beyond Poland. Yeah.
And Martyna, we know that you have a presentation that you will show us in a few minutes, but could you please tell about the role of the Akces and NCBR in supporting MedTech companies and early stage founders?
Yeah, so Akces NCBR is relatively new organization created by the main NCBR. And as you know, NCBR's mission is to support R&D and innovation in the country. And that's why they created independent unit, which essentially focuses on creating acceleration programs directed towards researchers and small startups that haven't been on the market longer than 5 years. And of course, I'll go more into details later, but our mission is in general to support that innovation in deep tech. When it comes to medtech sector, at the moment, we have not yet created a program that is dedicated for medtech. That's our future planning.
Are you going to?
Yes, that's our future planning, exactly. So just look out on our social media.
Okay.
But from the horizontal programs, we did have some biotechnology-related companies that applied that are successful. And again, the examples I'll keep for the presentation. But yes, there are innovations, and we do focus on those early innovations so that they can take off. Obviously, they need further support from the system in the country, whether it would be the main NCBR or the private investors, as from the dark side.
Okay, let's go to the exit strategy. So, Paulina, I have a question for you. When a global medtech company looks at a Polish startup, what are the 3 non-negotiable legal and commercial red flags that instantly would kill that kind of deal, regardless of how good the technology is? Is it clean IP, clear cap table, or something else?
I think there will be a more obvious and less obvious answer to that question. And I will start with the less obvious. I think Darek mentioned before that when a Polish or local founder meets with a representative of big company that's supposedly by it, they might speak a little bit of different language. The founder will be more specialized and focus on technology, on the innovation that they build, whether what the potential buyer is going to seek is not only the innovation, but also the integration aspect. And that does not mean necessarily that the technology is the biggest asset, but also the plan how to integrate, how to expand the potential buyer's business might breach this gap between those two entities. And if the startup company is not able to speak that language, they will not even reach out the phase where they can disclose those red flags. So that would be the first thing that I would see as an important aspect. Regarding the specific red flags, of course, the IP protection is one of the main issues. I don't think that in practice this is such a big challenge now, because a lot of founders, especially those that went the technology part, that went the path of a VC-supported company, they understand the value of the IP, that the IP needs to be protected, that they have to show a very clear ownership of this aspect of their business. But obviously, the international buyer will not risk buying a company or integrating a company that might cause issues on that level in the future. The same goes with regulatory aspects, which are very crucial for medtech. Regulatory elements of clinical texts, clinical workflows are a challenge everywhere in the globe. But again, the aspect of integrating a smaller entity into a bigger one means that this has to be bulletproof. And if there are any potential risks on this front, most probably they would be the showstopper for the deal. And the third one I would think about does refer to cap table as well. Some startups, when they develop, they are prone to getting, let's say, easy money from external investors or partners, or they are kind of careless where inviting potential shareholders or crucial key personnel to the company that then gets a part of the cake, let's say. And if this is not well thought from the very beginning, it might cause issues on the exit, because cleaning the cap table takes time sometimes. And if an international buyer wants to buy, they want to buy immediately, and you just might not have that time to work on the cap table. And these are issues that arise fundamentally. They are an element of the company that grows with the company. So that should be one of the first priorities of the founders, to actually think about that and how to structure it to be ready for that sale. Because the international buyer will act fast, and they will want to have 1-2 partners to talk with, not 10 or 15 people that have to align on the same front. So it's the founder's responsibility actually to think about that before.
And to continue, to Paulina and maybe Michał, when the goal is a big deal, big exit, high value, how fundamentally does the requirement of global exit change the operational structure, if it changes, and board composition of a Polish startup compared to one aiming for a local, comfortable acquisition?
Okay. Then again, I would start with thinking, what does this big exit mean? Because when we think about exit, then usually we would say, okay, we are exiting out of the company, because that's what precisely exit means. But in practice, this is always also an exit into something. Whether this is a private equity buyer or an international big medtech firm, they would expect that whoever exits remains either engaged or gives a path forward for that business for the buyer to continue. So I think what the founders would have to look for in terms of also corporate matters and their governance is how to build a team that is able to actually enter into that integration stage, to think from the perspective of a bigger business than they already have. So it's not only my startup that I'm building, but this is actually a bigger entity that I will be a part of. And hiring specialists or developing those specialists in-house that would have this more global, more integration focused mindset, I think it's very, very crucial. But also being a part of a big organization means that the startup needs to prove that they have internal monitoring or supervisory policies in place. So good practice is, for example, having a board or a committee of specialists that will actually not only help to run the business, which is always the most important and driving goal, but that will also allow to not lose those regulatory elements on the way, or that would give some insight to the founder and give a little bit more guarantee that this business is not only a good running business, but also has the regulatory or clinical related aspects really well thought and secured.
Okay, that's actually great, because it's gonna be a little bit long. Don't worry, not gonna say that. Okay, but it's kind of controversial because how we get $500 million valuation? There are a lot of options. The easiest one, in terms of the finance at least, it's to have the revenues of about $100 million. That's the easiest way. That's the benchmark. Yeah, let's say like from the theoretical perspective, yeah. But who will be acquire this company? So guys, who will acquire the company that had this kind of income? Pharma, MedTech? Who?
Big names only.
Yeah.
None of them. That's the PE. If you go to pharma, if you go to MedTech, they are not really care about your revenues, whether it's are big or not. If it's there, that's fine. But they are more interested in your market accesses, your clinical values. That's how we build ABA Stroke, by the way. I've noticed how the market is changing, that most of the companies, like we are doing the software as a medical device, most of the companies on that level we are now, if they were able to go to pharma were even interested in buying them, they never integrate each other. That's what you mentioned. Because the startups was never building their own as a potential target for the acquisition. So if you go to pharma and say, hello, I have a good company that has a lot of revenues, they don't really care about it. Because they are looking, okay, if you have a market to the European market, if you are class 2A, for example, like we will be soon, and then you have the FDA approval, that's the money they like. And pay way more than $500 million just to have an access. So if you have the product that is able to fit their strategy, for example, that's fine. That's how you do this. Because if you go with the great business to the farmer or medtech and say, guys, this is the great business, they say, okay, but it's not our business, it's your business. That it doesn't support our business. Pharma, it's a bio. Guys, bio and digital, it's not the same. They think about a bioham. They have this kind of mind. We've been discussing, for example, with the US pharma about the current product, and they have. If you have the early Alzheimer drugs now, they have they were just approved to the European and the US market from Lilly and Biogen. One in Lilly was in United States and Biogen here in Europe. They have massive side effects. So, but they've been acquired because they give. Finally, there is a drug that gives some statistically significant and clinically validated things. So that will be approved. But trust me, we can do the same with the mobile application. But when we discuss it with the pharma, they don't have this mind that, okay, if you work with the brain, maybe the digital form instead of the bioham is better because they are biohams. So if you wanna be acquired by the pharma, build your portfolio and all the aspects like IPs and market access, the clinical things, build for them and show them, guys, if you have this market, I can give you the accelerator to your product. Or I can go to the other pharma and say, okay, I will compete with them with the digital solution. Are you interested? This is my clinical value. This is my market access. This is billions. And it's kind of problem here in Poland that we are trying to, in case of MedTech, we are trying to make the SaaS businesses for everything. So get the fastest revenues ever. Go to the class 1. That's, by the way, one of the biggest problems in Europe and in general. So get the market earlier, get the revenues. But then who will acquire you? Nobody. Because pharma generate their own they generate their own revenues much bigger. They can replicate your revenues. But they cannot replicate your market access. They can replicate your clinical data. And by the way, they can replicate your product. So product itself, by the end of the day, it's not the most important. And this is the bad thing for the medtech companies, that they believe the product will protect themselves. No. The regulations, which means the clinical data, market accesses, this is something that protects your product. Because if someone has a better product, still needs to go for a 2-3 years path to get to the market. So trust me, we have a great technology makers here in Poland. Our technology, the advanced ones especially, is far away further than regulations. So we needed to create the way how to fit them to the regulation, the current one. But we think about it earlier. So we know that we need to go to the clinical path, then we get the market access, MDR, FDA. It's known from the beginning. Because then if we go to pharma and medtech, we speak their language. And this is one of the biggest things I want to share with you, that this is the way how we can build the medtech here in Poland. Not only focus on the products, but focus on everything. Take care about FDA, MDR earlier than when we ask for the market access, because that's the biggest mistake.
And you've mentioned the regulatory and clinical hurdles. And so when you talk to the investors, what do you focus on? Is it the product? Is it the clinical output? Is it the potential return on investment?
You see, this is depends on the moment you are. Because if you are a seed company and you have a product only, of course you show the product. You cannot show the clinical data. If you have the clinical trials, then you move forward toward the clinical data, and then if you are able to prove your ROE, then that's what you can show. But trust me, investors don't want to see the things that you cannot prove. So don't show the things that you cannot say, I am able to prove this happens. For our case, now the current presentation is mostly focused on the clinical data And on the strategical approach, we decided to go because we call it drug as a we call it like a drug. So we call digital like a drug, not to say digital drug because it's kind of forbidden, but anyway, digital like a drug, and we use it as a
therapeutics.
No, don't go that way. It's forbidden now in the United States because there were some problems in 2021. So no. We create our own way. We call it the like a drug, digital like a drug. And we show this is the contrarian strategy towards everything would happen, that we finally focus on what is needed by the M&A partner by the end of the day. And trust me, this is extremely difficult because VCs don't understand this way. They prefer to go into the, not only Polish, they prefer to go into the, let's call it the fast grow. But MedTech, the fast grow in MedTech can kill your company. No, exactly. But this is the point. If you go too fast in the MedTech, this is very weird because, our technology is the current one that goes to the market that get the CE mark soon, I believe this month, the December. So, but the technology is actually 2023. So, July 2023, 2.5 years. It took us from having the product ready to the clinical trials, to the regulation, the notified body, all the stuff. And then finally we are here. So you can say, oh, crap, okay. But we are here alone. And I don't see any competitors doing the same things now. If they will do, they need to spend the same time. So you see, we've built kind of barrier for entry. That's what pharma and medtech would pay me as a founder, not for how big I grew. That's PE level. So revenues, it's a part of the game. It's not the main challenge in the game. If you go for pharma, of course, if you go for PE, you go for revenues. So my main message to you guys is to check, decide what's M&A strategy you consider and prepare yourself for that one before you go further, because that would make you successful. Most of the companies forget about this issue. Of course, everyone would like to have their own company that is big, growing, big pharma again, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But in real life, 99.9999% goes for M&A, and this is the success. So everyone talks about exit, but a lot of people consider it as a kind of against the way to build the big company. Because if you go for the exit, you don't build your own Facebook, your own OpenAI, all the stuff. But in real life, not everyone needs to be Facebook. And most of the VCs actually prefer, and this is the sorry again, I should stop talking. When we started like 15 years ago, when I was in innovation, that was the moment that everyone was talking about the big vision. Big vision, have a big vision, go with this big vision, blah, blah, blah. I stopped to do it because the investors are not willing to listen how I will achieve extremely difficult things. That's great to have it somewhere in the background. But they're more interested how I get to the point they would give the money back. So big vision is usually too big for the VCs because they prefer to have something that would work. And most of the businesses better work when they are they're laserly targeted, not doing everything. Because spending money on different market, on scaling, on marketing, it's easy. $1 million in the marketing, you can spend in one day, not having any return back of this. So you see the point. Like, we are here in Poland, we have very good starting point. Then we have a problem in the regulation space, in the clinical space, because we somehow don't consider it. And then, of course, commercialization is also the problem. But by the way, my PhD was about it, so I can tell you this is the cultural stuff. Thank you. I stopped talking.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the public support. And Martyna, as both Akces, NCBR, and NCBR itself play a crucial role in early R&D funding, especially in medtech and biotech. Many argue that these grants sometimes encourage building features just for the grant requirements rather than global businesses. Should the NCBR and any other public institutions evolve their programs to act more like smart money?
Yes, well, the short answer is obviously yes. So there are certain programs where you obviously focus only on R&D, and you have to satisfy those milestones from the beginning. That's what you are applying for. But obviously, even now, there are strong discussions in the NCBR to change that mindset, to create synergy between different units in the group, and to create a pipeline. The fact that scientists will reach the milestones that are described in R&D grant is one thing, but they need to also start thinking about commercialization and return on this investment. And the true return on investment for the government institutions would be actually to contribute to GDPR of the country rather than returning the grant, because usually the grants are non-refundable. So in case of NCBR per se, we are trying to create a pipeline for the group, that it's a research group that will have a certain seal of our organization that gets from the good R&D that they'll develop based on the initial funding, and then go through the commercialization steps through acceleration, which we as Akces contribute to. And the acceleration means obviously interactions with mentors, with VCs, with people that know how to do it, how to get the money back. And then we are creating to move them from that part of the pipeline to meet the investors, to make the true steps forward. And as you know, MedTech takes years to have a true return on the investment. And I think in Poland, some big companies can say that they are managing to get the return on investment, and that's what we want to contribute to. And that would actually reflect the other great examples of investments from United States, for instance.
Thank you. And both Michał and Darek, from the founder's perspective, from the startup perspective, is there a point where relying too much on public money becomes a liability, slowing down decision making and making the company less attractive to private investors?
Well, so from Ailis' perspective, actually, I think without public money, the startup would not exist. So if you think about the life cycle, it's been already 9 years of development of Ailis, right? Because it has a very complicated or complex hardware element and software element. So it's been 9 years, and we still need probably another year and a half or 2 years to really go through a very comprehensive pilot or clinical trials to prove that the solution kind of or understand its market fit, right? And actually, in our case, the problem is that because the solution addresses the cancer, the breast cancer, we need a lot of patients with breast cancer to go through our clinical trials. So that's a huge expense within the, let's say, developing that solution. I think when we speak to VCs, especially in Poland, it's changing now, I know, but so far a lot of VCs, when we talk to them about the horizon of, let's say, 5 years or 6 years, I mean, in this case, it would be 11 years before the technology can be even commercialized or proven. I mean, there's very few in that country that would invest in such a long horizon. So I would say that's where really the public money to support the innovation, support the R&D, support the clinical trials. I think without that support, those really deep tech, med tech companies would not exist. Of course, at certain point, after we proved the technology, we kind of finish R&D or we finish clinical trials. There is that's where the switch needs to happen, right? And I think we've talked about this. Then the company needs to go out of the R&D mode into more business mode, and that's where VCs, investors, that energy would really help the startup to grow. But as I said, for us, I think without public support, that medtech, that really deep tech, complex technology would not be able to be developed.
Can I add something to that? I think that what you mentioned about the VCs is very true. And even if there are VCs that would invest in a company that needs so much time to develop the technology, that would be public funding backed VCs. This would not be private VCs because they are almost non-existent on that market here. And it wouldn't be Polish money only, that would be even EU level funding money that would have to go into the startup. So I think that just proves the thesis that you cannot do that without the public funding.
And I would like to add, because we often forget that it's not only Poland, it's not only EU, the innovation, especially deep tech innovation across medtech and biotech, wouldn't exist also in US without public support.
Well, you're extremely right. It's like it used to be like that with the NCBR funds a couple of years ago, that American companies were coming back here. Not even back, they were coming here to get the seed fund, because seed fund in our case is extremely well built here. In case of medtech, if you want to build the product, then the public money is kind of obvious thing. It's leverage to the private money. And if you use it properly, then you can really go quite far away. There are still the moments that you cannot go with the public money, especially the commercialization. It's the weak point here. Clinical trials is also kind of weak point. You can build it into the NCBR product, but that's the thing that that can be really make it way better, because clinical trials are a little bit off this topic. But anyway, seed money, and here in Poland, it's based, I think, almost only on the public money. And US funders were really willing to come here, build the companies in Poland just to get the NCBR money to build the products here. So you see, in some cases, you need to de-risk the investment. MedTech is extremely risky, extremely risky. It's way riskier than anything that VCs used to invest in. And that's good that we finally have the really MedTech investors, because usually MedTech was kind of add-on to have more points in PFR or European investment funds. So, but nobody was doing medtech in the real life. And here, now we finally have the people that want to do in medtech. And that's the first step to start it. And yes, public money in that case is needed, because it leverages private money and de-risk the investment. So that's the huge part here. Most of the companies in Poland would never exist without the public money, which of course doesn't mean they are spent extremely well, but let's say in some cases they are very useful.
Okay, so let's move to the takeaways, and to all of you. What is the one thing a founder in this room needs to change today? The mindset shift, the hire, first call, to ensure that these founders can be the next Polish MedTech success stories. Martyna.
Well, I think the mindset would be a very important thing to change. I had some very interesting discussions already yesterday where we were talking about entrance to the market and how innovation actually, what's the point of the innovation? So we are creating sometimes innovation because it's new, but we don't think what it's going to change for the end user. And that's what I think should be changing. We were chatting about hospitals hospitals. And okay, we have new fantastic diagnostic tools, but what actually hospital in Poland would get out of it will be that less cost for the hospital. That we are going to have to first invest in this very new diagnostic tool. So that's what I'm thinking, that the mindset should be starting to change.
Paulina?
If you're thinking about exiting globally, imagine that you're going through due diligence tomorrow, and then think about it. Are you able to prove what you're pitching? If you're pitching that the value of your company is access to data or clinical trials, then are you able to prove that you have that? If you're pitching access to market, are you able to introduce your clients tomorrow to the investor and say, they are my partners, we are working together? If you're not able to do that, then the time to improve it is not tomorrow, it's today.
Thank you. Gentlemen.
So I'll just extend from my perspective, looking at how long the journey is, right, in MedTech, if it's number of years. For young founders, I would still look very carefully at early investors. Who do you partner with? This is somebody who you will kind of continue for a number of years. And so don't just look at the money, look at the experience, at who that investor is, because that can turn into a very difficult situations for later, and it can even destroy the startup after a number of years. So, look at who you partner with, and maybe ideally at the beginning, just use the public funds.
I agree with all of you, but I would follow the Paulina's way. Because what we really miss here, we never ask ourselves why someone would pay the money for our startup. If we want to be successful, we need to know it, and then we need to find a way how to go it. So, for example, if we assume that we're going to have a lot of data, trust me, this is the extremely big case. Companies are saying we're going to have the AI models fed with the data from the patients. But do you know how difficult it is to get to the patients to get your AI data? Legally way, of course. Extremely difficult. You cannot give something to the patients to get the data out of this. So if you say that you go that, show the way how you do it. So, we never consider this part. We always think about the next year, 2 years' time. Of course, that's how the budget is, how the money is. But start asking yourself why someone would pay you money for a company and get this $500 million, $1 billion valuation. If you deliver, it's not rocket science. But if you follow some simple steps and ask it in advance, then you really can deliver this value. But never go with the slides like, I will do this, and don't be able to say how we do this. If you are not able to prove your regulatory path, why you go that way? I've seen a lot of startups going for the reimbursement in Germany. That's how we do this. But to be reimbursed in Germany, you need to meet a lot of requirements. And most of the companies never heard about it. The clinical trials, why should I have a mobile application? Come on. So, sometimes we are here in Poland, especially focused on the technology too much. Technology is great. We are extremely good in technology. But ask ourselves why someone would pay this $1 billion, $500 million for our company in a 5-10 years time and prepare the path like that. This is the crucial step. Everyone would ask you about these things if you want to go for the MedTech, of course. And don't go into the MedTech without knowing the regulatory path, because that would kill you sooner than you expect. Thank you.
So last question, when we will see your big exits?
For us, I'll show you. We assume it's going to be 2030, 2031. But it all depends on the regulatories. Because we actually, the biggest thing for that one is the second clinical trials. That would be in 2028, I think. And if they will be able to finish in 2 years, that will be the prior dementia. So that's longer periods, at least 18 months of the patient in the hospital trials. Then if we assume we will get the market access, then it's the perfect moment for pharma or medtech to acquire the company like ours, especially that we will have everything prepared for them to acquire us. So this moment when we need to fit to their criteria, it's for us would be just obvious, you know. But again, we believe it's going to be 2030, 31. But always have in mind that clinical things take longer. Like you build your house, it's always longer and always more expensive. It's like that with the clinical trials. Have it in mind. Assume that you're gonna spend 50% more and it's gonna take 50% longer than you expected. Then you will be at least positively satisfied if it's shorter. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was hoping for that optimistic conclusion. Because also at AEGIS, that is our bet that we are facing a new wave of upcoming MedTech successes in Poland. So thank you very much. Thank you all. And let's skip to the next point of the schedule.
Thank you.